Crimes against humanity. There is an important distinction between genocide and crimes against humanity, but many people still mix them up. So, for clarity, crimes against humanity are like if your favorite cartoon villain decided to go on a world tour, causing havoc everywhere they went, not caring where or to whom they were doing those bad things. The point of crimes against humanity is to cause as much damage as possible, as cruelly as possible, and as quickly as possible. These crimes include the ever-popular war classics: murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and other inhumane acts committed against civilians. Crimes against humanity almost never come alone, but bring other guests. Just picture the Joker deciding to host a "let's ruin everything" party and inviting only the worst people in history. The guest list would include those who participated in genocides, mass rapes, and systemic torture. Think less Prank Day and more Total Annihilation Day. Genocide. Let's get this straight. I doubt that many of you folks like family reunions. But now imagine a family reunion where, along with a tasty turkey, comes a little massacre. Introducing the world-famous genocide. Genocide is like a twisted version of a family feud where one side decides to eliminate the other because of a difference in ethnic group or some nonsense like that. It's not just hating your cousin because they always bring up your embarrassing childhood stories at Thanksgiving. Genocide involves the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Picture a group of people so determined to win the Most Horrible Humans award that they systemically kill, harm, or forcefully transfer a group of people they don't like. You definitely know the examples of that, don't you? I'll give you hints. Little evil Austrian bastard, funny mustache, long hand raising towards the sun, not very humble towards Jews. Torture. Think of torture as a spa treatment. It would be the one where you're waterboarded instead of getting a facial, and instead of hot stones, you get electrified chairs. Torture is the intentional infliction of severe pain or suffering to obtain information, punish, or intimidate. Remember all those cool movie scenes where the main protagonist resiliently stands against unspeakable tortures? Like a guy is thrown off a bridge into the deepest, darkest part of the river and he's like, "Oh, saints, river again? Those guys definitely ran out of imagination." But sadly, we, silly mortals, are not that brave. Well, not most of us at least. And when torture does occur on the battlefield, it's A, illegal, and B, do you really need to hear another reason? Imagine a mad scientist slayer, where instead of curing illnesses, the experiments are designed to make you scream. It's the stuff of nightmares where the treatment includes methods like sleep deprivation, beatings, and simulated drowning. It's as far from a relaxation retreat as you can get. Child soldiers. Have you ever watched the magnificent yet cruel movie Beasts of No Nation? If not, I highly recommend checking it out someday. It shows truly terrible pictures of our world and the world at war. I think everybody should acknowledge the true horrors war can bring, especially to children. Those innocent, pure souls forced to kill and be killed. Using child soldiers is like sending kids to a summer camp where instead of learning to roast marshmallows, they learn to fire AK-47s. It's the Camp Crystal Lake of war crimes. Picture this: a group of warlords thinking, why recruit adults when we can kidnap children and force them to fight? These kids are often drugged, brainwashed, and made to commit atrocities. It's the ultimate betrayal of childhood innocence, replacing toys with weapons. I once heard a conversation between a sergeant and a regular soldier. The soldier asked, in confusion and fear, "What do I do with a child soldier? What do I do when I meet a child on the battlefield shooting at me, trying to kill me?" Then the sergeant replied with advice, "You should lower your aim." I don't believe he intended it as a joke. Sexual violence and conflict. Sexual violence during conflict is the grotesque misuse of power where the battlefield becomes a horrific playground of abuse, both mental and physical. It's not just about physical dominance. It's a tool to humiliate, demoralize, and destroy communities. I know lots of people who'd rather be shot than humiliated in such a lustful way. But being truly honest, if it works, it'll be used moving forward. Because no matter what those fancy guys in NATO say about human rights don't work in the heat of battle. And they surely don't work when applied to a human being itself. It's an abhorrent strategy, akin to turning a romance novel into a horror story. The aim is to break the spirit of victims and their communities, often leaving lasting scars that go beyond the end of the conflict. And the worst thing is, it's usually used by both sides of war. For example, at the end of World War II, it's estimated that about 1.4 to 1.9 million German women were raped by soldiers, mainly those of the Red Army. Hooray to our commie fellas. And I don't even mention the Ukraine conflict. Attacking civilians and protected objects. It's like the schoolyard bully who is now armed with military hardware. These attacks are aimed at people in places that are supposed to be safe, like homes, schools, and hospitals. It destroys the human spirit completely, due to the fact that you can never be sure that the next bomb a big, bad airplane drops from the sky won't be aimed at your house instead of real combat buildings and threats. Picture a bunch of punks deciding that instead of just taking lunch money, they'll destroy the entire cafeteria. Civilians are supposed to be off limits in conflicts, like how you can't punch the referee in a game. But these punks don't care about the rules. They just want to cause maximum chaos and suffering. So it is in war. Usually both sides don't care much about the casualties. They care about winning the war at any cost. Hostage taking. Hear me out. There's a huge difference between taking war prisoners and hostages. When you take war prisoners, you take combatants, and you treat them justly, with a fair trial, well fed and well rested. Taking hostages, on the other hand, is the ultimate game of gotcha, where the stakes are life and death. Well, truth be told, people with Stockholm Syndrome might even like it, but I highly doubt that there are many people with such a kink. In conflicts, hostage taking involves seizing individuals to use as bargaining chips, often threatening harm if demands aren't met. It's the war crime version of, let's make a deal, but instead of fabulous prizes, the game involves terror and trauma for the hostages. The most famous situation with this crime occurred during the Iran hostage crisis. The Iranians held the American diplomats hostage for 444 days, more than a year of pure hell. While the courage of the American hostages in Tehran and of their families at home reflected the best tradition of the Department of State, the Iran hostage crisis undermined Carter's conduct of foreign policy, and, as a useless but fun fact, because of the situation and the failure of the rescue mission by force, President Jimmy Carter suffered a terrible loss in next year's elections. Forced displacement. A group of armed thugs shows up at your house, packs your things, and drops you in the middle of nowhere. Feels kinda unpleasant, eh? It's eviction taken to an extreme, where people are violently uprooted from their homes and communities, and that's exactly what is happening in the war. Every time. Imagine moving day where instead of professional movers, you have soldiers with guns forcing you out, and you consider it a blessing that they left you your poor belongings. As a matter of fact, a real blessing is that they didn't shoot you on the spot. They don't care if you have nowhere to go. Their goal is to clear out the area for strategic, ethnic, or political reasons, or just have a place to sleep and rest. It's the dark side of relocation, with trauma and loss as a part of the package deal. Biological and chemical weapons. One word. White phosphorus. Okay, well, it's 2 words, but who cares? If you ever watched some war movies, usually about the conflict in Iraq and Syria, or played a few games such as Spec Ops, The Line, or Call of Duty Modern Warfare, you probably know how it works. Even if you do know the theory, I really hope you never have witnessed its real effect on human flesh and never will. Using biological and chemical weapons is like a madman's worst concoction unleashed on the world. These weapons cause horrific injuries and slow, painful, and unjust death, making them the ultimate inhumane method of warfare. These weapons don't just kill. They cause lasting, agonizing effects, turning a war zone into a living hell. It's the terrifying fusion of science and sadism, breaking all the rules of decency that ever existed. Pillage. Do you like Black Friday? You probably do, my mercantile friend. No worries, so do I. But now imagine a Black Friday with no security guards and a lot more weapons and gore. And instead of a hypothetical Walmart, the place under the saint law of Black Friday is now your precious house and everything inside it. The pillagers take whatever they want, from precious artifacts to everyday items, leaving devastation in their wake. It's the war crime equivalent of take what you want and burn the rest, showing utter disregard for the victims' lives and livelihoods. Fun fact, the Mongols were some of the fiercest pillagers in history. They loved it so much They just kept pillaging as they stretched their empire from the eastern coastal regions of the Asian continent all the way into Eastern Europe and current-day Middle East. Greedy bastards. But truth be told, they're pretty good at it. Unlawful deportation and transfer. It's kind of like hostage taking, but a little different. It's like you stole something, but neither sold it nor used it. But the fact itself that you stole this thing is pretty grim. Unlawful deportation and transfer involve forcibly moving people against their will, like the worst road trip ever where you don't know the destination and can't go home. Picture being shoved into a bus with no explanation and driven to an unknown place. For some reason I remembered Everlasting Summer, but trust me, it's far worse than just an old commie camp with waifus. But returning to the crime itself, it's not just inconvenient, it's a brutal violation of human rights, often separating families and destroying communities. The perpetrators see people as mere pawns to be moved around for strategic gains, ignoring the immense suffering caused by such actions. In the end, I just want to say, fuck the war.